Okay, VCAL, it's your good friend Mr. Cleary here, and I am going to attempt to write up a plan for your newest assessment item. So this is not outcome 6, this is actually an oral speaking and listening outcome. Now we're not going to be going to Jeffrey Cutter anytime soon, so we need to do a little bit of oral work. Now we can't do that in front of each other at the moment either, so we need to think about the video resources we have available to us or the audio recording stuff we have available to us at home, because we need to get this done. Okay, so on my laptop, I've got a video capture piece of software, so you can hear my voice and you can see what I type into my computer, or if I move my mouse around. So at the moment, that's how I'm doing it. Now, how you do this is up to you. Okay, you're going to have to work with what you've got. So if you're on your phone or your iPad or a computer, or I don't know what you've got, but you're going to have to work out how to make this work. Okay, so first things first, everything VCAL requires a plan. So I'm going to write that plan now, and make a video in the process. So I'll make a video the same as the one you're ultimately going to make, but I'll just start with my plan today. Okay, so what we're working on is a task that relates to oracy for self-expression. Oracy for self-expression. VCAL outcome. Well, it's not outcome 6. I don't know what it is. I'll just put VCAL oral outcome 1. That will do for now. And this is our plan, of course. Put in a magical line. Okay. So what I want you to do, or what we are required to do, is come up with a narrative, recount, or anecdote. And you need to convey that orally. So our topic is going to be our current situation, so that, living through this global COVID pandemic, that's what we're going to do it on. Okay, so I'll just turn this into a plan the same way I always do. I'll put what you need to do on the left here, and I'll leave some space here for you to do it on the right. So this document, once I've finished it, I'll pop it around about the same place you find this video, and you should be able to complete that and send that back to me. So, topic. Now this one is chosen for you. Living through a global pandemic, living in lockdown. Awesome. Now format. Now this is where you need to decide whether it's going to be a video, an audio recording. It has to have an audio element to it. So give that some thought. Now, if you don't have the hardware capability to record your own voice, come up with a suggestion. I'm open to suggestion. Most important thing is that you do the work or do some work. Okay. I don't really just want to be hit with excuses as to why you can't do it. You guys are a younger generation. You're much more plugged in and computer savvy than my generation, so I'm sure that you've got a way that you can get this done. So I'll put in brackets here, video, screen capture, which is what I'm doing at the moment. Audio recording. Now, if you've got a phone, it'll have an audio recorder. If you don't, there'd be 100 audio recording apps that you could download. So no excuses. All right, everyone should be able to do this. Now, if you're worried about people listening to you, don't. Okay, I'll post it if it's awesome, but if you don't want me to post it, I won't post it. You just have to send it to me. Okay. So format, you need to decide what you're doing. So for me, I'll leave this blank when I send it to you as a plan, but I'm going to fill this out for myself. So I'm doing a video capture with scrolling pictures, and with audio over the top. We'll create a script. Okay, so I don't have a script today, so I'm a bit start-stop and mumbly, and I'm trying to think my way through it. But when I do this for real, not just my plan, I'll make sure I have a script so that there's not too many awkward pauses and those sorts of things. Cool. So I'm going to use images. Video you will use. So I'll leave this blank for you. However, for me, I'm going to put my images in there. Okay, so I'm going to tell the story of basically me learning about the pandemic and sort of my reactions to it, and I'm going to tell that with pictures while I talk over the top of it. So I'll have to think about what pictures I'm going to use. We'll also need a little bit of a space there for you to tell me what story are you going to tell. So I'm going to tell the story of how I'm feeling about the pandemic, but for you it might be the story of the day the police you got in trouble with the police for being outside, or if you had a party and you got told off by the police or something like that, or the day that you realised that the pandemic was really serious, or the fact that you don't think it's very serious at all. You might talk about the stats or what you've been watching on the news, or you might go through a whole heap of memes related to it. I don't know. It's really up to you what you want to do. But for me, this is the story of how I am feeling about the pandemic. Okay, so I'm going to go from basically the start to the end of how I'm feeling, all the way up to this point, and I'm going to have scrolling pictures going as I use my voice. Now, there's a space here for me to put my pictures, but I'm going to put my pictures underneath because my pictures are, well, they're a bit big and I want to have them as high quality as possible. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a picture of a screenshot from the Johns Hopkins University. This is like the outbreak map. I know that Matt Greville's familiar with this one. He was looking at it all the time in class. And Johns Hopkins is sort of the global data central point for measuring how bad things are getting with COVID-19. So I think I'll start with that one. And then I'm going to move on to a picture of that relates to the hoarding that went on down at the supermarket. So this is like the toilet paper aisle, and there's nothing there. And still there's limited toilet paper supplies if you do go to the shops. And if you do go to the shops, there's all these social distancing laws or rules in place, and people are handing out hand sanitizer and all sorts of things. So it's a bit of a different scene down at the shops. I guess that's when I started to get a little bit nervous that things were getting a bit serious. And I was sort of making phone calls to my parents and stuff and telling them that, you know, they're probably at risk and all of those sorts of things. The other thing that was going on very early on in the piece is we had lots of, wrong picture. We had lots of politicians coming out and basically making daily announcements about how serious things were getting. And it all started off pretty tame, but it very quickly got very serious. So that's ScoMo. I'll talk about ScoMo. I'll talk about Dan Andrews as well. So he's another politician. ScoMo's the Prime Minister, which of course you know. Dan Andrews is the Premier of Victoria. So these guys had some pretty different ideas about what Victorian schools should do. This guy was pushing pretty hard for schools to be closed down, whereas this guy was a little bit more reserved. And they still don't see exactly eye to eye about what we should do, but at the moment we're sort of doing what Dan says, and he says that for most of us that means don't go to school. So Dan Andrews made the call that we should start our school holidays a little bit early, so that's the picture I'm going to use. Obviously, if you get to go on holidays early, that's always a bit of a bonanza. And when that started, Australia's COVID cases were really on a steep increase. So I'm going to just use a little bit more. You know, this is the kind of data that you can come across any day you like about how different countries are handling COVID-19 in terms of infections, death rates, those sorts of things. So I'm sure that'll match up nicely with something that I script. And then I'm just going to talk about the horror and sort of how that's affected me, especially when you look at places overseas. So a lot of people have died in Australia, but some countries overseas, they've got more than 1,000 people dying a day of COVID-19. And I talked, I was looking at an article earlier that talked about the UK and how they're not counting people in old folks' homes. They're not counting their deaths in their official death count. The only deaths they're counting are people who have died in hospital of COVID-19. So if you're at home and you died of COVID-19, or if you're in an old folks home and you died of COVID-19, and lots of people are dying of COVID-19 in old folks homes, they're not even counting those people, which is pretty horrifying when you consider some of those European countries, there are 1,000 people dying a day. We are super, super lucky that that is not happening here. And it sort of really hits home the fact, while we're sitting at home doing our school and we're not at school because, like if you look at America, you look at the UK, there's some really scary things happening. And then I was going to talk about other things that I'm up to in terms of managing, or just what I'm up to around the outbreak. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm shopping for my parents. I haven't convinced my dad to stay home all the time. He's still doing a bit, and he's nearly 80, which is a bit annoying. But Mum's staying home all the time, and I'm doing a weekly shop for them. I just go over and drop the stuff at the door so that there's no risk of them catching anything off me or vice versa. And I think that was my 10 images. Oh no, I've got a few more here. So I was also going to talk about where we're at the moment in terms of working from home. So I was going to describe my home workstation setup I've got going on. I've got the 3D printer from school at home. George, I'm sure you'll be happy to know that. I'll have to print that slot car for you. But I've got my work laptop plugged into another screen, so I've got multiple screens going on, and I've got my own PC as well, which is where I run my Edmodo page. So I sort of flip between the two PCs. I've got everything open all the time, and I wish I could have this set up at school. I've just, like in terms of my IT, it's just really dialed in, and my internet's super quick. So I've got things sorted on the home front so that I can teach as well as possible without being there and being in your grill. How many pictures have I got now? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pictures. So I'd need one more picture for what I'm up to. So my last picture will be this one. And this one, I guess I'll just talk about, what we have to do. I mean, a lot of people on the news and, your Donald Trump types and stuff have been talking about how it's like a war. And in terms of lots of people dying, that's true. But it's a little bit different, the role a lot of us are playing in just staying home is a little bit different to the role that people would have played in a war having to go home. But it's sort of what we've got to do. We've just got to lock it down. We don't have a vaccine. I've heard what we're up to being described as a social vaccine, which is a really interesting thought. So until we can, vaccinate ourselves with science and with medicine, we just have to do the social thing instead, which is stay home, stay away from each other, and when you do have to go out, be really careful about it. So I'll write a script. So this will be my plan complete. I'll write a script that goes with my 10 pictures. I'll put these 10 pictures into PowerPoint so I can very easily scroll through them as I read my text, and I'll do another screen capture, but just without all this other sort of crap and umming and ahhing that I'm doing in between. So what I will post for you and what you need to do today is complete your plan. So your topic's already given to you, your format, you're going to have to work that out. The images or video you will use, if you're going to use images, include them in your plan. If you're going to use video, put in a really good description here of what you're going to video. And then I need to know what story you're going to tell. So for me, I'm telling the story of how I'm feeling about the pandemic. You are more than welcome to steal that topic. But if you've got a little story about something along the way, like how relieved you were when school was cancelled, or maybe you think school should be back and this is all a waste of time, or it's really up to you what you put. I'm sure you've all got some interesting stories to tell. You might have had a big kung fu fight down at Coles, fighting over the last 6 rolls of Quilton. Totally all cool. Cool. All right, so I should be able to stop this. I hope that makes this process all a little bit easier for you. Woohoo!